I would suggest you do your best to write out an I want statement next to the task. So, for instance, if the task is schedule my dentist appointment, something that many of us don't look forward to, then you would put a sentence next to that and say, I want clean and healthy teeth.
Alan, welcome to Sunday podcast Holistic Spirituality. My name is Philipp Kobald. We're reaching out to people who are passionate about spreading light, love, and joy. I'm happy to have here with me today Sue Erhart. Hello, Sue.
Hello, Philip.
Wonderful. Okay, so many times before, let's pray to the gods of internet that this want to be a smooth and wonderful conversation. I really looked forward the last couple of days to this, and I can tell you how much I looked forward because usually I'm writing a lot of smart questions on a little paper in front of me, and I have not written a single question, which means I'm deeply looking forward for this conversation because I just want to talk to you and want to connect, and everything will just magically appear. All the great questions.
I think we have a lot in common, and I think we're going to have a great conversation too.
Me too. I know it. And the first thing is, I usually like to start the podcast with a small introduction of the guest, just a little bit of a background before we go into details. And then I will make a small speech how important it is what you do, because I think that's where we're going to go today. Please.
Well, great. Thanks for letting me do that. I'll start first with the thing I'm primarily here to talk about, and that is I have a book coming out in January, and it's called Lose Your Critic for Good. So I'm actually a full time corporate executive here in the United States. I have a full time job and a busy career, but I have a real passion project around writing and sharing my wisdom. And so I run a website and a newsletter, which I call Practical Spirituality Tools for a Better Life. And I do my best to share my wisdom through my newsletter, through courses, and through my blog to give other people the tools to really embrace spirituality and see it not as a must do, but a smart way to live your life because it's way more fun and way more productive to tap into your spirit.
Wow, absolutely. This is so great. I'm a businessman. I run several companies, and on the side, I'm a podcaster.
Well,
But
and thank you for that, but I will tell you, one of the reasons I make it a point to talk about my full-time career is I think that there's a lot of people with a full-time job who feel cut off from their passions and wants. They have this either/or mentality and say, "Well, either I have this full-time busy job or I quit that job and pursue my passions." And I think you and I are fabulous examples for others to show them that you can have it both ways.
please call my employees. They will tell you otherwise. I've been neglecting my job 150%.
When you find something that you're following your heart, that you go all in on it.
Yeah. I had 4 recordings today, so I didn't cook the dinner for my daughter. So there's another grumpy complainer. Maybe some super mom can do it.
Well, we women are used to multitasking, so I will say that is a super skill of mine.
I'm not going to try it. Okay, wonderful. But sorry, but did I read a little bit up on you, and I had a sense that you do some very important part of spirituality, and that's why I thought this conversation is going. So let me confirm if I'm on the right track. You're opening up also spirituality for people who are a bit more advanced in life, who are not just like 20 something. I think you also care deeply to opening room and spaces for people who have like a little bit moved on in their way and most likely have forgotten about spirituality, or in this new secular world where a lot of people are not connected anymore with a specific religion on a regular basis. They just don't know what to do with that spirituality thing. Did I get that correctly about you?
You have it absolutely correct. I find that people who flock to me tend to be folks who were raised in an organized religion. When they became an adult, they floated away from that religion. And now, as they're reaching midlife, they're really feeling a yearning for something more, and they're not sure what to do with that. Many of them are exploring what I would call new age spirituality, but they feel like it's a bit of a reach for them. So I feel like I'm a bit of a bridge for many midlifers who are really trying to find their way back to their authentic spirit. And the tools I teach are all designed to do that.
And that's exactly what I read about you. And I thought, here it is, a super smart executive. You look at the world's biggest target group, nobody's tapping into it, no one cares. We're just laying around gold nuggets on the floor and like pick up, and everybody's fighting for those couple of 23-year-old or Instagram yoga posing girls. And every fashion brand want to sell them hot pants. Everybody want to spiritually look at those young, nice, good-looking men and women and want to bring them to the life. While there's millions and millions of people who have that the kids moved out, they're settled, and I think they really have a vacuum with their lives, especially because I had a guy in a podcast interview with a smart professor a couple of weeks ago, and he was so scared coming to my podcast because he didn't want to be associated with the word spirituality. He's full blown spiritual guy, full blown, just don't use the word.
I completely identify with that because I find in my own writing, I tend to use lots of different words for God just because I know that for some people that word is offensive and they prefer universe, source. I tend to see it as all one great big divine. The reality is the words we use convey different ideas to different people. And that's why words can be limiting, but yet we need them to communicate with each other. So this is actually something I write about a lot, that some of the different ideas that we have around spirituality are limited by the words that we use.
Absolutely, and the cultures and things like that. But fact remains, this is our subject maybe for a couple of minutes, that there are these people who have that vacuum, who have something missing, and they're also aware of it, that there is something missing, but they do not have the places, they do not have the proper tools. Let's take a couple of minutes to look at these people and look at some tools, look at some places where books and things like that, how these people should start reaching out. Where's the turning point for these people to reconnect with the concept of spirituality? Where does it fit in our new and modern time? Where's place for it and where isn't? Give us a couple of minutes of your wisdom, please.
I do find that these people are yearning, and they're yearning for this connection in all areas of their life. This isn't something that they see as separate, like something that you just go do on a Sunday morning for an hour. They're really looking for this true connection. They're asking questions like, who am I? What is my purpose? Why am I here on this earth? They're really digging deep into these things, and they are lacking the tools to really go further. I personally find that this group of people tends to be very practical, outcome oriented. They like applicable things that they can do. And so when they get into spirituality and people use words and concepts that are very nebulous or ambiguous, these are people who say, what does it mean to go within? So, what I like to say, and this is something that I do in my book and in all of my writings, is I really try to give you concrete exercises of things that you can do that bring you closer to your spirit and better know yourself. And I make these things very actionable and very tangible.
Would you give us an example? Something
I
comes
would
to mind?
I would love to. So, my book that's coming out in January, Lose Your Critic for Good, is all about helping people break free from a critical mindset. I see a critical mindset as one of the biggest blocks between people and their authentic spirit, is that they're either self-critical or critical of others, or they tend to see lack or what's been wrong. And so I've written an entire book to give people tools to stop that mental thought pattern and do something different. So here's one example of one exercise in the book. I deal with a lot of people who run their day based on a to-do list, and they write down all the things that they think that they're supposed to do. And I just want to be clear here. A to-do list is really a list of items that you don't want to do. Because if you wanted to do them, you would just do them. You wouldn't need to write them down to remember them. Okay. So they're often a list of tasks that you do not prefer, but you feel like you have to do. And a lot of people run their life based on task lists and get to the end of the day and judge how they feel about themselves of whether or not they completed the task list. And I coach people to get rid of that completely and start using what I call a logbook. And with a logbook, you start, I actually have mine sitting right here in front of me. You put the date down and you log everything you did, everything you accomplished, and how you felt as you did it. And this is powerful because it begins to reorient your mind from the negative, from the undone in your life, and begins to orient your mind to the done. And it also starts to associate feelings with that, which a lot of us, and when you keep up with this, what happens is your mind starts looking for the good to log in your logbook. It starts to see the good. And then as you write in your logbook about something good that happened in your day, you prolong and savor that experience, thus aligning you more closely to your soul. And as you do this consistently, I have found that you build up this sense of natural energy that I am now way more productive when I use a logbook to guide my day and to capture what I'm doing versus working from a to-do list.
I see this definitely. There's so many links comes to mind. Once you have that recoupling with yourself, if you're echoing with yourself, you immediately get stronger. So if you tap into your own emotions and tap into your own subconscious as a feedback, or you immediately get more purpose and more meaning for each and everything when you take the moment. That's basically half of holistic healing is about taking a moment to reconnect with oneself just for a microsecond. That's more than enough to get also the body feedback in a certain way. So I can
Absolutely.
completely I must say on a funny note, I take it super serious what you do, and I'm 100% with you. But I'm a quarter German, and we love our lists.
Well, again, you're making it this is a new form of list. It's a list of your accomplishments and achievements. Now, I will tell you, I'm a human. I have life tasks that I don't wanna do, and I need to keep track of them. And I do write those and set those aside somewhere on my desk. The key is I don't run my day from a task list. I don't start the day and
Yes.
say, "What are the things that are required of me?" I instead start my day and say, "What are my personal priorities and projects?" And I begin working that way. And to me, that's the real difference. I'm not judging it. I'm just saying I prefer a different way. But when you work from a task list, I would suggest you do your best to write out an I want statement next to the task. So, for instance, if the task is schedule my dentist appointment, something that many of us don't look forward to, then you would put a sentence next to that and say, I want clean and healthy teeth. So, again, you're anchoring to a want versus this idea of a burden being placed on you because I think we're all freedom lovers. And that's one of the reasons many of us procrastinate is that we really don't like our freedom being impinged by a task list.
I think this is a very good suggestion. This is something super clever. I haven't thought about it. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. This, I think, is helpful for everybody. But let us a little bit stay on the spiritual path for people who, because I think that we should give it a bit more space. And can you have any ideas, those tools that you just described, how they can be used or can be connected? I had a conversation with a 77-year-old podcaster, spiritual guidance person, and she told a lot to me and she gave me a lot to think. So I wanted to bounce this back with you, what she told me. She said that she meets in all kind of groups that she organizes. People are social, but they are just like a task. They just come there to be there, but they don't open, they don't share. So they wanna, but they haven't found the linkage. And what you said now is a very powerful idea to decode it for yourself differently. The dentist idea, that sounds like also a good idea for the social life or for the
Yes, I can. So that's also something that I talk about in my book, Lose Your Critic, is that many people who have a critical mindset live their life according to what I call the shoulds. They ask questions like, should I attend this event? What should I do next? What's the right thing to do here? These are the kind of questions. And those questions, in my personal view, are false questions because There is no rule book that tells us exactly how we're supposed to live. And in a way, you're asking the question outside of yourself as to what you want to do. And I think far better questions to ask yourself is, do I want to attend this event, regardless of the whole idea of somebody's expecting me to attend? You use the word coupling, and I love that word. That's coupling with your soul. When you start asking yourself, what do I want? You're going to your core essence and checking in. When you ask the question, what should I do? You're checking in with the masses and saying, what do people expect of me? Which is not your soul's guidance.
This is so interesting because when I listen to you, I see a lot of self-empowerment, strong position, grounded. I've achieved something in life. Here I am, but I still have the questions. I can't go, so to say, to the crazy Burning Man festival. That's not for me. And the fortune cookie wisdom, dear God, I have no place for this in my life. I want concrete stuff. I want to do something, but it must be real. I'm not 19 anymore. I hear a lot of, and that's looking then what is on the market, what people offer, what people do. It's like over and over the same. Find your inner child, whatnot, in all kind of forms. So there is literally no real good services and solution for like serious people to do the work.
Yeah. Well, and that's my purpose in life, Philip. I really feel like it is. And that's really what I've tried to do with Lose Your Critic for Good in my book. So I have 28 different essays, and each one has an exercise. And it's a very concrete thing you can do to find that connection with your authentic self and to really reconnect with the idea that you are spirit and that spirit is there to support you. This is the kind of work that we need right now because right now there is just a cacophony of voices telling people what to do, how to live, what their life is supposed to look like. And I think what people need to do is start tuning that out and tuning in to their own self. And to me, that's a core foundational spiritual practice. That's how it begins is you tune into yourself.
It is, of course, super valid point, and it's a tricky thing to do. But changing those percept, like with a dentist, is I think a super smart way you come up with. I don't know if anybody ever thought about it, but it is a very smart concept to change the perspective of small things once you start your journey inwards. Because when you go inwards, a lot of things come out. That's the problem. When you start listening to yourself, a lot of unpleasant things. And I guess when you're a little bit moved on in life and you, after 20 years of running and taking kids and all the insanity, and now you're basically in the empty house and you look in the mirror and you know that the job is going to go another 20 years, but more or less nothing crazy is going to come up. You're just going to progress. And yeah, kids come back for the holidays and whatnot. But basically, you look in this deep emptiness, and then maybe by accident, you look inside, and then all the floodgates open, and then people get scared. That scariness, and I'm looking the last couple of weeks for ways, and I would like to get your take on how to deal with that scariness. Can you also transform that scariness? And I think there I would like to hear what you have to say about the scariness.
Yeah. And I think as someone who early in my career definitely had a critic mindset and a critical way of being, I used to avoid inner work because I equated it with hearing the critic and that I was going to be met with a deluge of critical thoughts. So I avoided that work. What really worked for me is once I sat down with inner work, I realized that there's only one thing you need to do as you do inner work, and that's love. So, when you pull forward, let's say a prior version of yourself who did something that you now regret, or did something you even feel was a wrong step or a wrong thing, all you do is love up that prior version of yourself. That's the brave action there. That's the brave thing to do is to sit with your prior self and say, whoever I was, I accept that and I love that. And that's the work. That's the work.
Absolutely. And it's a valuable work because if you're empty inside, most likely you will fill this emptiness with very bad ideas, right? If you really have emptiness burning a hole inside of you, you will fill it with alcohol, you will fill it with senseless shopping, you will fill this emptiness with everything on earth. The number one idea is to plug that hole, as you said, with love and fill it with good things, with healthy things.
Yeah. Well, I will say I love a glass of wine and I do enjoy my shopping. So I don't see those things as inherently bad actions when you do them for fun and you understand why you're doing them. I would tell you when I see people who I feel like are empty or when I have been in a point in my life where I felt a little empty, I think what people do is they start looking outside of themselves for guidance on how they're supposed to live. They start following maybe people who they shouldn't be following and doing things according to the way they don't check in with themselves because they're feeling empty. And I just feel like it's a time to come in and love. And I would say the word I would really anchor to is allow, because that's what I feel like is a key. Just allow it in.
Yes. But this also requires community, right? Because there's a crucial element of love and sharing is community, is doing with others, finding common ground with others. That's enormous healing element. Is there a part in this in your work? Do you see the need for building the community? Is it part of what you're thinking and doing?
I do think community is helpful. It's a great way to realize our shared humanity and to learn things about yourself. But I will tell you, I really think the foundation is self. Here's how I see it. When I engage in spirituality, which to me is a project to figure out what I believe and what I think, I can't believe in anything else until I believe in myself. If I don't believe that I am, I exist, I matter, then I'm not going to get much farther than that. So I personally believe that spirituality is first and foremost an action of self knowledge, self approval, and self love. And then once you have that foundation, you have an excess of love, approval, compassion to bring to others in whatever community you choose to engage with. So I would say self first, and then community is a bit of the icing on the cake.
That's definitely a valid point. I see where you're from and I see how you approach it. And most likely also it really is an age thing. Maybe is there is an element of age that you need to tackle spirituality, maybe every step of your life. There is basically in every stage of your life, maybe a preferred or more functioning way to start or approach. And I can understand that maybe when you've been through that stages in life, when you've done so much and you accomplished so much and you find this emptiness, that you maybe really have to do some work and first connect with yourself, clean up and get your attitude right and find the self-love before you can then reconnect because you anyway have been over connecting most likely in your life until to that point.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
I
think
see that.
yes. I see that a lot with middle agers. We are working in careers in order to support our families. We're supporting our children and taking care of them. We might have parents that we're also caring for. So we're giving a lot. And the emptiness is that we haven't taken the time to really stop and say, who am I? What do I believe? And we haven't taken the time, I think, to really sit with our own wants and desires, which are the whispers of your soul, and really to follow those forward. We've done what we should, but we haven't really taken the time to ask what we want.
Do you think there should be something like spiritual fitness club do you think something like that should exist?
I think that would be awesome. I really do. I think there's so many tools that I'm now using as a middle ager that if I had those available to me in my teens and 20s, my life would have had a completely different trajectory. I just really think these things I think they're part of our shared humanity, honestly. They're just that foundational to each of us. And I love the idea of thinking of myself as an eternal being, as someone who continues on and thinking the same about every person I interact with. I mean, life affirming thing to deal with.
The last couple of days, I more come to understanding that all the tools are known thousands of years and everybody's spinning around the same things. And then still they're lacking, which is a kind of enigma. how can anything be there in abundance? And like you standing in the middle of a gigantic lake of fresh water and you're thirsty. It seems so disconnected when I look at the disconnection between what people need and what there is. And it doesn't seem to come together. That's what I've been a little bit observing the last couple of days. And trying to wonder, as I said, spiritual fitness club, something that everybody can attend to. It doesn't have a huge package of either religion or some crazy guru or whatnot. No, and it's democratically open to everybody. If you're good looking, bad looking, if you're young or old, you take a little ticket and you do the work. This is something that's a lot on my mind these days.
Well, I think our universe is abundant with solutions. And so I personally think that yes, there are these great lakes in front of us. There's all of this wisdom, all of these things have been there. And yet still more are coming in. New and different perspectives are arriving. And I just see it as really just like a love fest of new ideas of saying, this is how you can better understand yourself. This is how you can better know yourself. And that's kind of what I try to do as an author is I try to capture the newest and best ideas that are coming to me, all of my inspiration, and I put them together in a book and share them so that people can and sit with them and say, "This is something I've never thought of before. Let me give this a try and see if it works." And some of the old ways work and some of the new ways work.
You're making workshops as well, or you just mainly work as an author? You work with groups or sometimes with individuals? You do hands-on work, or you're more like an academic author, developing it, sharing it, and can you tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, I do a little bit of everything. So if you pop over to my website at sueerhart.com, I offer online courses, and certain of those courses we do in a cohort style where we bring a group of people together. We select a few, we interview and say, "Hey, you're ready for this?" And we put a small group together, and then we do online Zoom meetings as they work through the course content. We also have courses that are self-directed, and we do some of that. So we have some different ways that you can learn because I think we're all different learners and have different ways that we come at things. And so we try to offer a lot of different options.
Amazing, and what's the age group usually from your
I would say it tends to hit people from their 30s on up. That's definitely the age group that seems to be very attracted to my work, that they see it as meaningful and helpful. And I tend to hit people who are in corporate. They need this work.
well, I think if you ask me, I would only work with them because they run the world, and the more enlightened they are, the better they'll do the jobs. Whoa, if you come to me, how we just make it mandatory. You want to be CEO? Woof, go to Asgram for a year and then you get started. If you ask my opinion.
Yeah, what a world we would have if we did that.
I had such a fascinating conversation with a person who works in also corporate world. She does a lot about inclusion and all of these things, and her take on how great ideas get misunderstood. That is was a wonderful conversation to have. So I believe that if we just had a couple of more CEOs and managers who would learn to reconnect with themselves in their inner feedback, I think we would get a whole lot different decisions on many levels. And by the way, do you also do you agree with me that the challenges of the times to come, things getting much more complicated if we want or not? Either scarcer resources or a more complex use of technology, the networking, and let's not go into the global political scene that we anyway will need much better managers.
Yes, and so a few things I'll say. First of all, I think it's incumbent upon each of us as a personal responsibility to go on our own inner journey and find our way. Like it's I say this in jest, like it's easy to tell someone else to go on a spiritual journey. Let's each if we each did that on ourselves, we'd be wonderful role models. Then in terms of like where the world is, I admit I'm a big picture thinker. And I look at all of human history. And when I look at all of human history, I'm extremely encouraged. We're in a good place. We're becoming more peaceful as a world. Yes, we still have troubles. Yes, there still are problems, but we are absolutely moving forward. And in my personal view, that forward momentum is increasing in speed. There is just more and more with technology. But it also means that there's more and more of a need because there's so much information and connectivity out there that you get that core inner connection with your own spirit, with your own soul before you go take in all this content.
Because that's exactly what I meant. Because I didn't see that the world is bad or good. I just said it getting more complex. There's more information and it's faster.
Yes.
So there we actually agreed. And so if you're not more than grounded and more down to earth, there always has to be some yin and yang, right? So if everything around you goes faster and faster, what you need to do is go slower and slower because that's the only way you can respond to the speed. Uh, if you create manager or management schools, which have it worked amazing, and I am aware that this works, but this, so there's a red line, and the better I stay on the red line, the more effective I will be, the more productive I will be, and it is like the last 100 years, it worked amazing. And big corporations be built on the idea of get something done. But in a world that I feel is coming our way, where things are so much more interconnected and more separated, broken glass, and we have to deal with a lot of different parts, I
Mhm.
think that the people we have are not as well equipped as they should be.
Yeah.
Would you respond to that?
Yeah, and I will tell you that as I've delved into spirituality and specifically the very practical tools that I teach, here's what I found. I have found as an executive that I make decisions easier. Like I have extreme clarity around what we're trying to accomplish and I just make decisions and I trust my gut, I trust my intuition and I know where we're going. I also find that I process large amounts of information more easily. It's almost as if I have an intuitive sense of what is for me and what is not for me. And I wade through things much, much quicker. And the last thing I will say is when I use these spiritual tools, I achieve my goals. And I do so in ways where the journey is just as enjoyable as the mile marker when I achieve the goal.
I'm absolutely sure about that. And I'm so happy that you're doing your work. I can't speak about the US, but in Europe, I do know some politicians and so on, and they're literally hit a wall with complexity because they don't know. Before that, they have five, six things on the table to deal with at the same time. But now it's quadrupled and they don't
Yes.
even know where to pull, and everything is connected with something else. I've talked a lot with influential people over the last year. And I just really see that they're getting exhausted, just even starting to talk to me about the complexity of what's going on. And in the end, they don't do much of anything. So this is what you say. Once you've learned to tap into your creativity and your spirituality, once you've learned to shift your perspective on the tasks, then clarity came. So that's all I'm saying is we need to have better leaders, more conscious leaders, because things get a bit harder. So we need better people to deal with the hard stuff.
No, I don't disagree.
Right. So that's why we're here to promote your work and tell people that's the way forward. And especially with managers or people who are developed and want to solve them. In so let's break a one more time, go merry-go-round before we coming forward to what's the ending. So you specifically say, you said just right now, once you tapped into your spirituality, clarity came almost intuitive. You said what you want, what is good for me, what is not good for me. Spend one or a couple of minutes, if you may, just to give us a feeling, a sense of what it means, how that feels, because that's the enigma, right? When we look at people know how to use spreadsheets, Excel, they can put everything in numbers, they can make this decision very rational and they can explain it to the board. And gut feeling, yes, some big CEO can have the gut feeling, but we all know where this can end or cannot end. You talk about something much more different than just gut feeling. Maybe let's clarify it because I see a little bit of different between big CEO gut feeling, the big entrepreneur, and I've met them. But for the average CEO, you talk about something much different. This tuning, that inner feedback, right? Can you give us their clarification?
So to me, when I'm take the time and make sure I'm connected and I'm paying attention to my wants and my interests and my own self again versus asking what should I do, what must I do, like I'm really tuned into my own energy, then I find that my decisions become almost choiceless. And meaning that I'm not sitting down writing out pro and con lists. I'm not doing the spreadsheets I'm literally looking at things and saying, this is the next right step for me. And it might be something as simple as a project that comes up at work that captures my interest. And I know that I want to delve deeply into it. And so I go all in on delving deeply on that.
I
Go
must
ahead.
stop you because you're a CEO, you're a boss, you can do it. But what would you do if one of your managers, whatever, comes along and says, I have this intuition feeling that's the way we should do a project. Maybe the numbers are against it, but I can feel it.
Oh,
What would you do?
I think it absolutely fits, Philip. Again, even huge corporations are simply made up of people, and they are people exercising their judgment each and every day. Frankly, that's why we hire people versus using AI. It's that we need that human judgment. So I personally, as I lead in my areas, I do pay attention. When someone comes to me and says, "I can't explain why," I'm a lawyer by background, so I also manage a bunch of lawyers, and they come to me and say, this isn't sitting well with me and I need to delve further and I need to spend time figuring out why. I say go all in. That is very much how I lead. And that's why I hire the people that I hire is that I want to trust them for their personal judgment, even as I bring my own personal judgment to the table. So I think it's more relevant than ever. And I think it is part of every big corporation is that we're really listening to and people have a very real impact on what happens inside a corporation.
You should have two books, right? One for the person who's using the tools and the person who is managing, guiding, or basically standing outside of the person who's using the tool. You always need two seminars to train the bosses or the co-workers, whoever. Be aware somebody's now coming and he's going to talk about feelings. Don't be scared. Nothing's going to happen. It's all okay. Breathe, everybody. It's gonna be all right. Give them a chance to express. Is this something?
So you're giving me my next book idea. Maybe I need a book on spiritual leadership, and that's the next one. But I'm still firmly in the camp that your best course of action is to start with yourself and to really start tapping into your own intuition and allowing that to lead your life.
You are a so much better boss than me because if any one of my employees comes with any idea whatsoever, it's just basically I have prepared a big transparent no. And you are so much better than me. I can tell you this right now. You're gonna get a lot of stand mail. People working for me. I'm a terrible boss. Well, there's something else. So this is amazing, and I really see the second book coming up because it is interconnected. You see what I mean? Where once you start this in a job in an office, and you want to implement this, you also need to put in account the environment, how they will perceive me, how they will react with me. Will they think I'm going cuckoo? Will I maybe not get the promotion because they think, oh my God, he's in touch with his feeling. Let's stay away from him. This guy is crazy. I mean, next year he's going to have different shows at the Christmas party. It is part of the game in the mechanism that we are living that once you a little bit step out of the comfort zone, a little bit step out of the norm, that you're fully naked. So that has to take quite a courage to trust your gut or to express these things. I really see that there's work to be done on many different levels if you want to change that.
Well, but here's the fantastic gift of spirit. When you really do tap in and start listening to your authentic self, one of the byproducts is that you care less what anyone thinks of you. So it's almost as if those worries take care of themselves. You stop thinking about, oh, well, what do people think about this or how I'm doing? You just start showing up authentically and saying, here's what I think. Here's my best advice. Here's my opinion. That's what you pay me for is to be me, and that's what I'm bringing to this job.
This is a wonderful full ending for a podcast. This is a wonderful message that everyone should find this courage. Everyone find these tools. And the dentist thing I'm going to use forever on now because that's exactly how we should think. You are so absolutely right. That's precisely how we should be thinking about so many things. And it's our choice how we translate the stuff that we're doing to how we explain it to ourselves. It's our words, our choice. And we can use smart words, good words, encouraging words, meaningful words, like we learned from you in your book.
Exactly, and life is just lived in the moments, and when you can change one moment to become more positive, you're on a different trajectory. You really can do this in moments. I like to show others the positivity, and I'd like to think that my books hold your hand through the process, and you feel like I'm walking right there with you.
Thank you so much. And I will consider being a better boss at some moment in life after this podcast, maybe.
Maybe.
Thank you so very much. And I hope to see you soon one day. When is the book coming out? You said January?
It's on pre-order now. January 14th is a full release date, and it is available everywhere books are sold. So if you're Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, Apple, wherever you buy books, it's there.
And everybody here on the podcast, just go down there. You find the link, you find all the information, and be better than me. Learn from Sue. Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
very